What's going on, guys, and welcome back. I'm not going to waste any of your time. We're going to jump right on into our post-DUNE tier list because we just had our sneak peeks and the official release is in just a couple days. So this is, again, my opinion, what I think. This is assuming no ban list just randomly drops before Worlds. After Worlds, I could definitely see something happening, so we'll see what happens at that point in time. But so here we are kind of right now as we stand today, post DUNE tier list. Altergeist, where do I think Altergeist ranks? I think it's a sneaky deck that might see a little more play. Is the new support necessarily going to push it up? Not necessarily, but I wanted to at least just mention it and have it down in our Rogue category. Cyber Dragon, we're going back to it, guys. We played Kashtira for the last two formats. I enjoyed the change up. I enjoyed playing the meta, but I'm having a lot of fun playing good old Cyber Dragons once again. I do think the deck is in a better position than it's been in for quite a while. Bestials are still a thing, so we'll see how popular they end up being. Otherwise, Cyber Dragons are going to be in our Rogue category. I am going to hurry up and shut off one of my alarms before it goes off. And yeah, so there's that. Dark World. Droll is less popular, so where do I think Dark World ranks? I'm going to put it up as a tier 2 deck. The deck can still put up massive boards. The deck can still go second pretty well. And yeah, like I said, Droll's not a thing. And people like their Dark Worlds. I think that it's in a little bit better spot than it was last format, but it's still not in a great position. Despia is going to go on up. We're going to keep climbing up our ranks here. We're going to go 1.5 for branded Despia. Do I want to go higher? Not really. I don't think it should be. I think it's pretty comfortable right where it's at least for the time being. It's kind of one of those decks where, like, Kashtira, you know, is going to get hit again. Spright, you know, is going to get hit. Runick's going to get hit. Is Despia going to get hit, though? I don't know. I think it should, but it might not. And if it doesn't, it may go back into that tier 1 category. And if it goes back into that tier 1 category, people may just side the blowouts for it, and that will instantly drop it right back down to the 1.5 category. Dinosaur. This isn't for Worlds. I think for Worlds it's actually a stronger deck, but in TCG current format, I'm going to put Dinosaur as a Rogue strategy. Right behind it, Dynamorphia, also going to be in Rogue. I'm still not a fan of how this deck operates. I think it's maybe a little bit better than I want to give it credit, but I think I consider it like a bad Rogue deck where it's probably a decent Rogue deck. Again, I just don't like its gimmick. I don't like its strategy. I don't like the playstyle. I don't like how it functions. But that doesn't mean that I'm not wrong and it's not better than it is. Dragon Link. Where do I want to put them? Another deck that for Worlds is actually pretty decent just because there's so much Dragon support out there. I'm going to put it behind Branded in 1.5. Drytron. Probably right near the top. We'll see how they end up going as the format develops. I just think that, kind of like Despia, there's too many blowouts for this deck at the moment, especially like Bestials. That's going to be the downfall to a decent bit of the Rogue decks. Like, we have Cyber Dragon already, and now we have Drytron, where Bestials just absolutely wreck these decks. Exosister, a deck that can play Shifter, which is always pretty good. Not super popular, but I think the deck has some good matchups and that it's probably going to see very little play, which is its biggest downfall. But I think that if a good player picks it up and brings it somewhere, they're going to have a pretty good chance with it. Flunder, another one that's going to go in our tier 2 category. Obviously, since losing the barrier statue, they lost one of their win buttons, and they still can play Shifter. Aside from these cards, though, the deck is pretty decently consistent. It does lose to itself going first more often than other things, A little more vulnerable than it used to be, but I think that Flunder is still a pretty strong tier 2 strategy. Gold Pride, with or without the punk, we've seen pure Gold Pride have success. Yeah, they did success. Pure Gold Pride has had success, but with the punk engine, they have had more success. I think it's a deck that, especially if we get a ban list, you should keep an eye on, because it's only going to get better. They're not going to get hit at all, and we will see how they develop. You can't have a big tournament season without seeing heroes do something, and I don't think that's enough to move them out of our rogue category, but it's always interesting to see them doing something. Infernable, where do I want to put them? This is a classic case of the deck's better than people want to admit, but it's still worse than too many other options, so people aren't going to play it. So I'll leave it as our tier 2 right now, because I think that as far as how good the deck is, it absolutely can be. But if the player base just doesn't pick it up at all, it may have to drop, because as much as people want to say, like, how strong decks are, tier lists really take representation into effect, because that's just how it goes. You can't do well without representation. Invoked, I've been seeing it a little bit more popping up testing online as of late. I'm still going to leave it in our rogue category, but it's one of the decks that can use duality better than most, and I think that it's something you should at least, I don't know. If you don't know what Alistair does at this point, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe it's a little late to hop on that train, because it's been like, what, 10 years now? You should probably figure it out. Kashtira, obviously they're going to be tier 1 until something changes. Not really anything to say about that. Labyrinth, we're going to come in at tier 1.5 once again, whether you're playing a trap build or the furniture build. I think that both are very, very strong, and this is quite possibly the best deck for Worlds format. But again, this tier list is not Worlds format. Maybe we'll drop a video on Worlds, but for this one, Labyrinth is going to be tier 1.5. Manadium seeing more success, and I'm excited to see what happens here. We initially were very hyped on the deck, kind of got let down, but it has started to see more success as time's gone on. We're going to put Manadium as a tier 2 with potential. Marincess, I said it was just a few people topping with the deck, and less about the deck as a whole doing well, and that sure seems to be the point. I'll try and order the top 2 up here, like with best decks, but these 2 are just kind of where I decide to put them, not really as best or worst decks. One circular hurt the player base. It hurt a lot of people playing the deck. Do I think it's low tier, high rogue? I'm going to go low tier 2 for mathmech. Spright Melfi, here we're going to go 1.5. I think Spright Melfi is just seeing a lot less play, but I think the deck is still pretty good. Mechanico is actually kind of a fun deck, being able to give your opponent the damage instead, being able to tribute their cards, just being able, having another ritual deck being good. You know, we got Drytron already too, but I think Mechanico is actually a pretty fun deck, and I kind of want to build it in real life, not just online. The Chimera deck, where do I want to put them? I think it's interesting, and I love the artworks, and I'm gonna go very high rogue for right now, and this is kind of more of a standalone Chimera deck, or like a deck where it's the main focal engine point. Does it have potential? Maybe. I could see it going into tier 2, but we're gonna put them in rogue for right now. Phantom Knight, another deck that I absolutely love and have been messing with as of late. I'm going to leave in our rogue category, however. Plunder Patrol 2, it's another good rogue deck. It's actually probably one of the best rogue decks. You can mix it with Runick or Adventure. Probably not both, but Plunder Patrol probably one of the best rogue decks out there. Purrely, a little bit more support. They were already actually doing pretty good without it. I'm going to put them up at 1.5. I think people want to play different decks. I think people want to change it up a little bit. And I think people want to play this deck again because they didn't get a full chance to do so due to the ban list. I'm going to put Purrely as a 1.5 deck. Rescue Ace. Pending a ban list, maybe they move up. But for right now, they're going in tier 2. It's a deck that you definitely need to learn what they do and get ready for it. Because once we get a ban list, this deck is going to be 1.5 at the minimum. So be ready for it. Know what they do. And, you know, like I said, don't get caught sleeping because you're not ready. If you want to know a little bit more on how to beat some of these decks, we are starting up our How to Beat series once again. If you're a Cyber Dragon player, make sure you stick around because we're continuing on our discussion videos, going through cards in the main deck, extra deck, variants, things like that. Rika, talking about Worlds decks, here's another deck that is very strong for Worlds, and it is also very strong in Current. I'm going to put Rika as a 1.5 deck. We all saw the European WCQ, and however it, you know, we all saw how it ended, but at the end of the day, there was multiples in top. The deck has been topping a lot of events in multiples, and it has won a few events. I think Rika, it's finally time that everybody should know what this deck does. If you do not, it is your own fault when you lose to it. Runick for hire with the small Spright package. I think it's a tier 1 deck. It generates absolutely insane advantage. It's insanely consistent. The deck is kind of annoying to play against. And yeah, I think it's a pretty decent tier 1 deck at the moment. Runick Stun, going to come in at Rogue. I've been seeing this deck online a ton, and I don't quite get why. I think it falls into the same issues that pretty much all stun decks have, that if they don't set up a lot of control right away, they lose. I'm just not a fan of stun decks, I guess. Super Heavy Samurai, man, I wouldn't be surprised if Scarecrow came back to 1, honestly. Like, we've seen Konami just hit things really hard or make weird hits, like when Called by the Grave first got hit, and then it came back. And then it got hit later. Desires went to 1. Desires came back to 2. I could see Scarecrow coming back to 1 just because of how hard they fell off. And if that happens, I expect this deck to shoot up. But for now, it's going to be a Rogue deck. Spright, Runick, Twins. I'm going to put them right behind Kashtira as another tier 1 deck. One thing, if you followed the spreadsheets when we did it, which we will start up again right after Worlds once events and regionals and YCSs start kicking off again, I got some ideas to make it better. If you have ideas to make it better, let me know down below. I am all ears because it's for the player base, by the player base. So if the player base has ideas, again, I am willing to help. We noticed Spright was topping like almost identical to Kashtira, but as far as actually winning events, Kashtira just pulled away and was far and above beyond. But I do think that Spright variants are right there, especially with the Runick engine. Sky Striker, can we put him up at 2? No, not quite. We're going to leave him down as a Rogue strategy. I don't know what it'll take for them to be tier 2 again. Maybe a decent ban list, where something like not only we hit the top few decks, but also like Magnamut to 1, maybe that would be enough to push Sky Striker up into tier 2. It's been seeing less and less play, it seems like. However, I think Sword Soul is still a strong tier 2 strategy. Synchron seeing more play, getting more support. Revolution Synchron, it's going to be fun to see what this deck does, where this card pushes it. It's an insane card. If your deck summons a bunch of level 4s or even level 5s, it's a fun way to make a Crystal Wing almost for free, or a Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, or yeah, Hot Red Dragon Abyss, whatever. Because if you have a 5, you just go into like Scarlight, gives you a card for time too, summon back, make your Hot Red Abyss. Or obviously if you have 4s, you go into your Synchro Dragon, then you bring it back, then you make your Crystal Wing. So pretty fun things you can do with it there. Tearlaments, oh my goodness, I am so tired of this deck. I think that right now it's fair though. I think that it's where it should be. I think that it's a very strong tier 2 deck though. It's still pretty decently consistent. People have almost solved it once again, and that's what's pushed it back up and why we've seen a resurgence on it. It's not tier 0. It's not insane like it used to be. It's still very annoying like it used to be. It still can be tricky to navigate like it used to be. And it's still kind of fun to play, whether you liked playing it before or not. But I think Tearlaments is actually back in a spot where it's pretty good to play if you want to, because like I said, it's kind of been almost figured back out, and the lists have started to streamline, and the results are starting to get there. And I've seen it online testing more and more. I saw it towards the end of the format popping up in top cut results more and more. I think Tearlaments is a deck that is also very safe from the ban list. So if we hit some of these, it could even go up into the 1.5 category once again. I would not be surprised. Earth Machine, we're going to put on Rogue. We saw him make a run. They seem to do that every format at a major tournament. Like, you'll just have that one Earth Machine just all of a sudden come out of nowhere and make a run at it. Trap Tricks, another Rogue strategy. Structure decks, cheap, very cheap deck. I think that no one will argue with this, though. It's, what are you going to say, tier 2, maybe? I don't think so. I think it's a Rogue deck. Unchained. Where do I want to put them? There's actually Unchained Labyrinth, which is pretty scary. I think that you should be ready for it, but I don't think that it's too bad to the point where like you have to over prepare for it. Vanquish Soul, another deck here. I was debating like really high 2, but I think I'm going to put them on like the back end of 1.5. A little worse than Purrely. I think that your Spright and Chimera are our best 2 decks, with like Despia, Labyrinth, Rika, Dragons, Purrely, kind of the next 5 behind those 2. Then Vanquish and other Spright variants. Melfi being the best of the others. Pure Spright, probably more of a tier 2 deck. Gishki Spright, probably more tier 2. But yeah, I think Vanquish Soul and like Spright variants are the back end of our 1.5, whereas, you know, best decks, next row, and then obviously tier 2 and Rogue, like I said, not quite in order. If I were to order it, how would I change? I guess tier 2, I'm actually pretty content with how tier 2 right now. I guess I'd move Rescue Ace back, Synchron back a little, Sword Soul there. I think tier 2 now is kind of how I would put it. Rogue, again, I'm not going to organize Rogue, because if your deck wasn't in this video, it's probably in the Rogue category, so that can just change all that up. It's all subjective. It's all based. It's all what each person wants to think. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know down below what you agree with, what you disagree with. What decks did I miss? Again, if I missed them, they're a Rogue deck. There's a slight chance that maybe they're a tier 2 deck if I missed them, but that's about it. Let me know what's too high, what's too low, and until next time, guys, take care.